You're not struggling with money, you're struggling with identity. Every single day you wake up and unconsciously choose to be the same person who made the same broke decisions yesterday, and the day before that, and the year before that. You're not living, you're replaying. You are addicted to a version of yourself that was never meant to last. That person you call me, they're a recording, a loop, a program running on autopilot while you wonder why nothing changes. Same thoughts, same result. The wealthy understand something you don't. They know that transformation isn't about adding new habits to an old identity. It's about killing who you were so who you're meant to become can finally breathe. And right now, your old self is fighting for survival. Because in the next few minutes, everything you thought you knew about change is about to be dismantled. The addiction. Here's the uncomfortable truth nobody tells you about personal transformation. You're addicted to who you were, not because that version was successful, not because that version was happy, but because that version is familiar. And your brain is hardwired to choose familiar pain over unfamiliar growth. Every single time. Think about it. Why do you keep making the same financial mistakes? Why do you keep thinking the same limiting thoughts about money? Why do you keep attracting the same level of abundance year after year? We are what we repeatedly do. But here's what Aristotle didn't tell you. What we repeatedly do becomes who we believe we are. And once that belief solidifies, your brain will fight to the death to maintain it. Neuroscientists call this identity homeostasis. Your brain has a thermostat for who you are, and every time you try to become someone wealthier, someone more successful, someone different, your brain cranks up the resistance to bring you back to baseline. Baseline. That baseline is your old self, and they're not going anywhere without a fight. But what if the fight itself is the key to your transformation? The recording. Every morning you think you're waking up and making fresh choices. You're not. You're pressing play on the same recording that's been running since childhood. Your thoughts about money, recorded. Your beliefs about what's possible, recorded. Your reactions to opportunity, all recorded. The person you think you are is just a program, running on repeat. Studies show that 95% of your daily thoughts are the same as yesterday's, and the day before, and the decade before. You're not thinking, you're remembering, you're not deciding, you're replaying. Same script, different day. And here's where it gets disturbing. That recording wasn't even created by you. Your parents installed it. Your teachers reinforced it. Society polished it. And now you walk around calling it your personality as if you chose it. You didn't choose your money beliefs. They were installed before you could even count. If this is making you see your own patterns differently, hit like and subscribe, because we are just getting started. The question isn't whether you have a recording. The question is whether you have the courage to hit stop, because the next revelation changes everything about how you see yourself. Familiar prison. Your comfort zone isn't comfortable, it's just familiar, and there's a massive difference. Comfortable means it serves you. Familiar means it's what you know. Right now, millions of people are living in familiar misery, choosing known pain over unknown possibility. The prison you know feels safer than the freedom you don't. Why do people stay in jobs they hate? Familiarity. Why do people stay in relationships that drain them? Familiarity. Why do people keep the same money problems decade after decade? You already know the answer. Your old self has built a prison so comfortable you've forgotten you're in one. The bars aren't made of steel. They are made of routine, of habit, of this is just who I am. Your brain perceives unfamiliar territory as threat, even when that territory is wealth, even when that territory is success, even when that territory is everything you've ever wanted. The moment you step outside your familiar identity, your nervous system sounds the alarm, and most people retreat immediately. They call it being realistic. They call it knowing their limits. But all they're really doing is choosing a familiar cage over unfamiliar freedom. And speaking of freedom, what if the path there requires something most people refuse to do? Identity death. Here's what nobody wants to hear. The person you are right now has to die for the person you want to become to exist. Not metaphorically, not kind of, actually die. Every limiting belief, every self-defeating pattern, every that's just how I am, dead. The death of the self is the birth of the soul. Jung understood that transformation isn't addition. It's subtraction through destruction. You cannot become wealthy while running the mental program of someone who's broke. The software is incompatible. The operating systems don't match. You have to uninstall the old before you can install the new. Think about a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. The caterpillar doesn't grow wings and add them to its caterpillar body. It literally dissolves. Every cell breaks down into genetic soup. The old form completely dies. Only then can the new form emerge. You're trying to add wealth to your caterpillar identity. It doesn't work. The caterpillar has to die. Your old self has to die, not be improved, not be upgraded, dissolved completely. This brings us to the most terrifying part of transformation, something that stops most people cold: the void. Between who you were and who you're becoming, there's a space, a gap, a void. And this void is the most terrifying place in human psychology, because in this space you don't know who you are anymore. Your old beliefs don't fit. Your new beliefs haven't formed. You're nobody. And that feeling of being nobody, that's not failure. Transformation. That's transformation in its purest form. The moment you lose yourself is the moment you find yourself. Most people can't handle the void. The uncertainty is unbearable, so they rush back to their old identity like running back to a toxic ex. At least it's familiar. At least they know who they are there. Even if who they are there is broke, even if who they are there is stuck, even if who they are there is slowly dying inside. The wealthy think differently. They understand that discomfort of not knowing who you are anymore isn't a problem to solve. It's a threshold to cross. Confusion before clarity. Every self-made millionaire has walked through this void. They've survived the dissolution of their old self. They've embraced the uncertainty of the middle, and they emerged on the other side as someone new. But there's a specific reason why your old self fights so hard to survive. Survival mode. Your old self isn't stupid. It knows it's fighting for its life, and it has one weapon that works every single time: fear. The moment you start changing, the moment you start questioning your identity, the moment you start thinking like someone wealthy, your old self deploys fear like a nuclear weapon. Fear is the old self's last line of defense. What if I fail? What if people judge me? What if I'm not good enough? These aren't logical concerns. They're survival signals from a dying identity. Your primitive brain cannot distinguish between physical death and identity death. To your nervous system, becoming someone new feels exactly like dying. The heart races. The palms sweat. The mind spirals with worst-case scenarios. 1. Fear of failure disguises itself as realism. 2. Fear of judgment disguises itself as humility. 3. Fear of success disguises itself as unworthiness. Every single one of these fears is your old self trying to survive. And the moment you recognize them for what they are, they lose their power. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. Your treasure is on the other side of your old self's death. But how exactly do you kill an identity that's been running your life for decades? The funeral. The wealthy don't just change their habits. They hold funerals for their old selves, consciously, deliberately, completely. You have to mourn who you were to become who you must be. This isn't metaphor. This is psychological technology that actually works. Write a eulogy for your old self. Acknowledge everything that version of you believed. Thank them for getting you this far, and then bury them, every excuse they made, every limitation they accepted, every small dream they settled for, into the ground. Old beliefs buried forever. Research from psychological studies shows that ritual and ceremony activate different parts of the brain than logical thinking. When you ritualize the death of your old identity, your brain takes it seriously. Your neural pathways begin rewiring. Your unconscious mind gets the message. The old operating system is being uninstalled. But here's what most people get wrong. They try to become someone new without grieving who they were. They skip the funeral and wonder why the ghost keeps showing up. You cannot rush transformation. You must honor the death before you can celebrate the birth. Which leads us to the most counterintuitive truth about wealth: new identity. Once your old self dies, you face the most important question of your life. Who do you choose to become? Not who your parents wanted you to be. Not who society expects you to be. Not who your old self allowed you to be. Who do you choose? Choose. The wealthy understand that identity is a choice, not a discovery. A choice. You don't find yourself, you create yourself. Man is not what he thinks he is what he hides. But I'd take it further. Man is not what he hides. Man is what he chooses to become. Right now, in this moment, you can decide who your new self will be, what they believe about money, how they think about opportunity, what standards they hold for their life. You choose your identity. Start speaking as them. Start thinking as them. Start making decisions as them. Not someday when you have more money. Now. Because here's what the wealthy know: you don't get wealthy and then change your identity. You change your identity and then get wealthy. The identity comes first. The results follow. And this leads us to the specific code that the wealthy run in their minds. Wealth code. Your old self ran a specific code, a poverty code. Beliefs like money is hard to make. Rich people are greedy. I don't deserve abundance. There's never enough. This code has been running in the background of your mind your entire life. Every financial decision you've ever made was filtered through this code. Every opportunity was evaluated by it. Every possibility was limited by it. The wealthy run a completely different code. 1. Money flows to value, and I create value. 2. Abundance is my natural state. 3. Wealth is a skill I can develop. 4. I deserve prosperity because I contribute. These aren't affirmations, they are operating instructions, and here's the key. You cannot run both codes simultaneously. It's one or the other, your old code or the wealth code. Delete the poverty program, or it will keep running your life. Every thought you think either reinforces the old code or installs the new one. Every word you speak either strengthens poverty consciousness or builds wealth consciousness. There is no neutral ground. The wealthy guard their code religiously. They're careful about what programming enters their mind, because they know that identity is software, and software determines results. But there's one final piece that makes all of this actually work. The chapter. Your old self was never supposed to last forever. They were a chapter, not the whole book. You are not a finished product. You are an unfolding story. Every version of you that came before served a purpose. They learned lessons. They survived challenges. They brought you to this exact moment. But their time is over. Clinging to who you were is like refusing to turn the page because you're comfortable with the words you've already read. The story cannot progress. The character cannot grow. The ending cannot change. The only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance. Right now, the next chapter is waiting. A chapter where you think differently about money, where you believe different things about possibility, where you make decisions from a wealthy identity, not a broke one. New chapter, new you. But that chapter doesn't write itself. You have to consciously close the current one. You have to deliberately end the old story. You have to choose transformation over familiarity. The wealthy aren't lucky. They are intentional. They chose to kill their old selves so their wealthy selves could be born. And now, so can you. Everything you believed about change was wrong. You thought transformation meant adding new habits to the same person. It doesn't. It means becoming a completely different person. Your old self has to die for your wealthy self to be born. That discomfort you feel when you try to change, that's not failure. That's your old identity fighting for survival. That confusion of not knowing who you are anymore, that's not a problem. That's the void between who you were and who you're becoming. Death and rebirth. The wealthy didn't stumble into abundance. They killed their broke selves consciously and deliberately. They held funerals for their old beliefs. They installed new code. They chose their identity instead of inheriting it. What the caterpillar calls the end, the rest of the world calls a butterfly. Right now, you have a choice. Keep running the old program and get the same results, or let the old version of you die and finally become who you were meant to be. The person you're becoming is waiting, but they can only emerge when you stop being who you were. If you made it this far, Comment OLD self-buried if you're ready to close that chapter forever. Your mind is either programmed for wealth or poverty. Now you know how to reprogram it. If this exposed something in you, subscribe. There's more to uncover.